What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. This is the channel where we sit down and cover different comic book stories from Marvel, DC, and even IDW as well. But today, we're going to jump back over to DC Comics, and we're going to cover Superman Birthright. Well, the first half of Superman Birthright. Now, this was an updated version of Superman's origin, because when it comes to DC Comics, they constantly give us updated versions of Superman's origin, and this was one of them. This came out in the early 2000s to give the new readers an updated version of Superman's origin before he became Superman, or before he became the man we know of today. So, like I said, we're going to cover the first half of Superman Birthright. I do hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you do, please hit that like button down below and also subscribe to the channel for more content to come in the near future. But I do hope you enjoy. Now, Birthright begins with the origin of Superman on Krypton, where we are introduced to Jor-el and Lara, the biological parents of Superman. We learn they have already finished the spaceship that is going to send Clark Kent to Earth. This is where Jor-el tells us that Krypton is dying, and sooner or later it is going to explode like it always does in every origin. But while he explains what is happening to the core of the planet, we learn how Kryptonians have been on this planet for thousands of years. From wars being used to decide how the government should be run, and science was used to advance their way of living. Except now they have reached a point where all their achievements means nothing because their world is going to blow up. Before he is able to teach us more of the history of Krypton, we see Jor-el and Lara put a certain tablet inside a spaceship of Clark. So when he crashes on Earth, he will have something to teach him the ways of Krypton. After that is done, of course, this leads to the moment where Krypton begins to fall apart, meaning that they have to send Clark off into space before the planet explodes. And so, of course, we get the usual panels of us seeing Clark being shot into space and his parents hoping that he does land on Earth safely. Also, Jor-el tells us that he picked Earth because of the yellow sun, will of course give Clark his powers. Then the story jumps to 25 years later, where we see Clark as an adult but using his powers to save a man named Kobe Asuru in Africa. Now, this person is going to teach Clark a valuable lesson down the road, but Kobe Asuru was being shot at because he's an activist who is trying to change his part of the country. Now, of course, with Clark being here, Kobe's bodyguard and his sister are not sure that they can trust Clark, but he tells them that he is there to write an article about Kobe Asuru, that right now Clark is a freelance reporter at the moment. Now, this leads into a very important lesson that Kobe gives us about human nature, because we learn that he is trying to change how his tribe is being treated by another tribe. How this other tribe has made Kobe's tribe forget about their own culture and focus learning about the other tribe's culture, making it seem that Kobe's and his people's beliefs are pointless and should be forgotten. He speaks on how human nature is to discriminate against someone else beyond the point of race. There's other ways that people will discriminate against someone, and so his goal to have his tribe finally gain respect they deserve. Except after Kobe has spoken about what he is trying to do, that is when you had the enemy tribe attack the area where Kobe and his people were having a celebration at. Which means you have Clark use his powers to help protect Kobe and everyone from being harmed. But this leads into a problem for Clark, where people have seen what he can do. He has to make up some lame excuse on how he was able to do what he did with his powers. But this also shows that the enemy tribe will do anything they can to stop Kobe from achieving his goal of making his tribe better for his people. But the next day, we see Clark Kent sending an email to his Earth parents, Jonathan and Martha Kent, where we learn that he has not been home in about 7 to 8 years now. He explains what he has been up to in his life as a freelance journalist. Also explains to them how he had to use his powers to help different people in different situations. With him doing that, people have seen him use his powers, where him and his parents had this goal to keep his powers a secret. But now his powers have been seen by many people. Then he proceeds on to explain his findings with the tablet, the same tablet we saw his Kryptonian parents put in his spaceship before the planet blew up, how it holds records of the history of Krypton. But sadly, he does not understand what is being said because he was never taught the language. And so right now, he is just confused on what is being said to him, but hoping the pictures can help him figure out what the tablet is trying to tell him. Now, this leads into Clark visiting the other tribe's leader, where this leader is trying to explain that Kobe's intentions are bad. It will lead to more bad things happening. It is him stating that as soon as Kobe asks for one thing, sooner he will ask for more, and it will dramatically change everything, telling Clark that he is going to wipe out Kobe's tribe. Where you have Clark run and tell Kobe that he needs to be careful, because we learn that the next day Kobe and his crew intend on marching to the Capitol and giving a speech hoping it will change things. And Clark is trying to tell them that Kobe's opponent will try to make his move at that moment, and Kobe is not listening, of course. So leading into the next day, we see Kobe is giving his speech, hoping that his speech will change things. This leads to Kobe's sister coming to Clark to tell him that Kobe's village is being burned down. So Clark knows that he needs to use his powers to save the village before it gets burned down. Now, this move was done by Kobe's opponent because he is trying to get rid of Kobe and his people so no one will try to oppose him in the future. Now, you have Clark being able to take care of the thugs who were trying to burn down the village, except that is when Clark realizes that with him gone, it is the perfect time for Kobe's opponent to make a move to kill off Kobe. And that actually does happen, because when Clark realized what was going to happen, that is when we see Kobe getting stabbed by a henchman. That leads to Clark rushing back over to City Hall to grab the henchman, where the henchman points out who was behind the attack, which does get Kobe's opponent arrested, except the big problem is that Kobe is now dead. And so the question is now, who will take his place as a leader? Which of course it would be his sister. But the story jumps forward 3 days later, and we are back in Smallville, Kansas, where of course you have Clark Kent returning back home for the first time in a long time and greeting his parents. Now we do learn that Lana Lang, Clark's first girlfriend, had left Smallville and no one has seen her since then. Also, we learned that Lex Luthor was here, and there were some hints that maybe Lex and Clark were close friends, except something must have happened between them, because Martha Kent hints that something must have happened. Also, she does not like Lex at all. She tells Clark that he's in Metropolis now and has his own company, and she leaves it at that. Now you have Clark tell his parents that he plans on doing something different in his life. This proceeds to him going into the shed and pulling out his old spaceship and explaining how he wants to use his powers to help people. He wants to be a symbol for the people of this world. and this leads to him asking his mother to help him make an outfit for him out of the cloth that came with him when he crashed here on Earth. Now, we can see that Jonathan Kent does not like the idea of Clark Kent trying to use his powers open in the public. While Martha and Clark are working on the outfit, Jonathan is just sulking around and being sad. And there is a good reason why he is acting the way he is acting. But before we can explore what is wrong with him, you have Martha try to talk to him, hoping to learn why Jonathan is acting the way he is. Because to Martha, with Clark going through this next big phase, Jonathan should be helping. Except Jonathan says something around the idea that with Clark being different, it is the root of the problem. But the next day we see Jonathan Kent in the farm with the hammer, where we see him trying to destroy the spaceship of Clark Kent. Now this is where we learn that the spaceship is, for one, unbreakable, but also causes him to hit the wooden beams that were holding the farm up. And so with that happening, you have the barn house begin to fall on Jonathan, but saved by Clark at the very last second. This is where you have Clark ask Jonathan why he has been acting distant from Clark. And so you have Jonathan come out and say that with Clark leaving for 7 years, it felt that their bond was broken. With Clark thinking about coming out as a hero but not carrying the Kent name anymore, to Jonathan, it seems that Clark does not want any connections to the Kents, and he failed as a father. And this leads to Clark explaining that he was away for so long to discover who he is, but also what he wants to be for the world. Jonathan did the same thing too when he went into the army. And so they come to an agreement that they will never stop being close to one another. After that, you have Clark Kent and Jonathan Kent go inside and talk to Martha about him having two personas, one being Superman and one being Clark Kent. This is where we see them working on his posture so no one can tell that Superman and Clark Kent are the same person. This ends the whole Clark Kent working on his costume and his way to hide his identity. He then goes to Metropolis. Now when he gets to Metropolis, of course, he goes to the Daily Globe, where he gets introduced to Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane. Now he has heard of Lois Lane before because she was already a big time reporter, but this is his first time meeting her, and he sees her protecting Jimmy Olsen from a higher up who is using his position as a way to bully Jimmy. And seeing how she stands up for what's right and also how strong-willed she is, Clark already begins to like her. They even do introduce themselves to each other, and we find out that Lois actually knows Clark as well because she read his piece on Kobe's village, the same village that we saw earlier in this video. And so this established the first meeting with these two characters. After that, we see Clark meeting with Perry White for his interview, where you have Clark acting like a shy guy, and he wants to act like this because when he becomes Superman, Superman personality is going to be all brave and never shy at all. He wants to keep his two personalities separate from each other. Now he does show a moment to Perry White that he is actually not just a shy person, he can actually be a headstrong person. Except Clark only does it for a moment to show Perry White that the Clark Kent persona can be a brave soul. Except at the very last second, we see that a military drone attacks the office of Perry White. Something I forgot to mention is that Metropolis is testing military drones as a way to protect the city from any kinds of threats, except for some reason the drones have gone crazy. Now, when y'all know something like this happening, that means we are going to see Lois Lane trying to get a front row view of the scene so she can report it and have Jimmy Olsen there to get her pictures. They take the Daily Planet chopper and their goal is to use the chopper to get a closer view, but she crashes into a wall or something, which makes the chopper begin to fall down and it seems like they're going to die. Except that is when Superman saves them, and this is the first time everyone in Metropolis sees Superman. After Superman saves Jimmy and Lois, you have him go and fight against the advanced military drones to stop them from hurting anybody else. Except while he was taking down the choppers, that is when Superman sees Lex Luthor with his supervision, reminding Clark that hey, Lex Luthor is in Metropolis. But with him remembering that, of course, he is caught off guard by a missile and thrown into a nearby wall. Now, of course, Superman is barely hurt, and so he gets back up and gets ready to take care of the rest of the military drones, except he grabs one of the drones, and by doing this, we see he is able to track down who made the drones go crazy, which is Lex Luthor, who is behind the drones going crazy. We do have Superman go confront him and explain how that he was able to trace it back to Lex. Superman's supervision gave him the ability to trace the signal back to Lex Luthor, and when he tells Lex Luthor that, you have Lex point out that there is no way that will stand up in court. A man who can supposedly see the signals that no one else can see. Before they can argue even more, that is when Lex Luthor's security team steps in to stop Superman, which of course is really a bad move. Because you have Superman just use his heat vision to destroy all of the weapons in the room. That is also when Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen appear to get an interview with Lex Luthor in a picture as well. Now, of course, you have Lex Luthor trying to play it off that him and Superman are best friends, but in reality, they are not. Superman even gives him the cold shoulder. Then when Jimmy tries to take a picture of Lex and Superman, that is when the guards try to take the camera from Jimmy and beat him down, which leads to Superman using his super speed to handle the guards and grab the camera as well. Then he proceeds to leave the building, and then when Jimmy and Lois get thrown out of the building by Lex's security team, and when they get outside, you have Superman drop off Jimmy's camera to let him know that he saved his camera. But following the day after Superman and Lex Luthor meeting, we see Lex Luthor go to Colorado, where we find out that he has a division called Echo Park that is looking into space for any proof of other planets that have some form of living. Now, this is going to be tied into the core concept of Lex Luthor in this story, but we will not see that until maybe the next video. Some of it in this video right here, but most of the concept in the next video. Except we see him go to a sub-level and we learn that he actually has a piece of kryptonite on him. And we'll learn where he got this piece from in the next video as well. But then we see that Superman is continuing to show Metropolis that he is going to be around to protect the city, where there is a school shooting and you have Superman take care of the shooting before it could get out of hand. And with him doing that, he was able to interrogate the kids who brought the guns to figure out who gave them the guns. And so you have Superman go and find the person who gave the students the guns, where of course he hands that person over to the police. But we pick up with the Daily Planet again to see the daily life of working for the Daily Planet, where you have Lois Lane driving Perry White crazy because she does not understand the boundaries. And so we see him making a list on why he should keep her around. It's funny to me, but then you have Perry White call out to Clark because Clark has been invited by Lex Luthor not once but twice. No one has ever interviewed Lex Luthor that easily, but Clark has been declining the offer, and so now Perry White is going to force Clark to go and see Lex Luthor. He also makes Lois Lane go as well to make sure Clark goes. Now we see Clark and Lois go back to Lex Tower to have this interview. When they get there, you have Clark talk to Lex as if they know each other. We learned earlier that Lex and Clark did meet before in Smallville, and so you would think this would lead to the both of them discussing old times or something in front of Lois, except Lex says he does not know Clark like that at all, saying they never met. The real reason why Lex called Clark here is because he is upset with the story Clark wrote about him over the drone attack we saw earlier, saying Clark is lying. This leads to Lex showing Lois and Clark a presentation to show that Clark articles only focuses on small things. There are bigger problems out there in the world to worry about. This leads into Lex showing Lois and Clark his big project, where he projects different things Echo Park has found. And this is the facility we saw earlier that Lex made to examine space to see if there is another form of life out there in the universe. Now he shows us that on the other planets in the Earth galaxy has some form of living, but they're only creatures like bugs and monsters. But the reason why he is showing Lois and Clark this is to make a huge statement. He states that Superman must be an alien from another planet. He was able to figure out that Superman gets his powers from the yellow sun, that the yellow sun is soaking the cells of Superman to give him his powers, that he also thinks that a red sun would depower Superman. Except with that concept, he makes this statement that maybe a red sun could actually power humans of Earth. It would do the complete opposite than what the yellow sun does to humans. Now he does show some pictures that are fake where Superman is being operated on and they are cutting him open to learn his biology. It leads to Superman and Lois leaving the place, but now with more questions if Superman really is an alien. But this leads into the closing section of our first video, where we see Lois and Clark talking about if what Lex showed them is true, that Superman is non-human and an alien. Also the fact that there could be other aliens out there. Except we do see some images that show Clark and Lex when they were young, but they were friends. And so we definitely have proof now that Clark and Lex were friends back in Smallville. But we are still wondering what happened to end their friendship. We're going to end this video with us wondering what Lex is going to do next, and also wondering what happened between Lex and Clark. Also, we do see that Perry White forces Clark to write an article that states Superman is an alien. And so now all of Metropolis now knows or could think that Superman is an alien. And this is where we're going to end today's video. Now, I am not going to sit down and give my thoughts on like I usually do at the end of the video, because we still have another 6 issues to cover. So in the next video, I will give my review over this story. But if you did like today's comic book video, please hit that like button down below and also subscribe to the channel for more content to come in the near future. Also, any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But I'm out of here, and I'll see y'all next time.